feedback gonna start coming. It's too loud. Testing 1, 2. All right. Just make sure. Testing 1, 2. All right. Are we live yet? We're live. Okay. Well, good. Good evening. Welcome to TNT. You can turn around and wave at the folk out here who are around. And good to see y'all. And I'm great. Yeah, I got a little headache, but I'm good. Today was one of them days that give you a headache. Huh? No. Don't take what? What did she say? What? I don't know what you're talking about. You said don't take what? Aspirin? Yeah, I don't take aspirin. Oh, no, I'm good. I took stuff already. I'm fine, thank you. Two new victims. Well, is your first time at TNT? You're new. Speaking of that, who's here for the first time tonight other than my two victims? All right, good. Well, good. It's always amazing how we start. It's like this. And you don't even pay attention as people start trickling in. You don't realize. That's good. That's good. And so many people streaming. Let's pray and then we'll a few things. God, we thank you and we honor you on tonight for this opportunity, oh Lord, that you would allow us to gather in this space. And we pray, oh God, that you will continue to strengthen our hearts and our minds as we seek to grow and expand who we are as human beings by delving deeper into an understanding of who you're calling us to be, not just as your people, but as disciples, oh God. We thank you and we honor you. Open our hearts and open our eyes and open our minds that we might be receptive to what you reveal on tonight, oh God. Lord, we love you and we honor you. And it's in your name we pray. Amen. A few things before we get started. I've been just jumping into it, but I'm going to kind of taxi down the runway tonight before I get in. First thing is, you've heard me say this from the pulpit, but I want to clarify what is happening at FCBC with regard to these changes that are taking place. First of all, you probably won't, there's a ringing in, Yannick, there's a ringing in my mic on these speakers. You probably won't feel the changes as a congregation for maybe 6 months. Maybe some small things you'll notice, but 6 months. We are kind of going through this, we're calling it FCBC 2.0. That's what we're calling it internally. We're restructuring, reimagining all that we do, who we are, from leadership to our teams to ministries that we launch and officially move forward to really expand who and what we are. And I've told our leadership, we had a retreat early January, and I told leadership, it's going to take us a year to get through some of these changes, and the kind of this official launch of FCBC 2.0 will be in 2027. But for the first several months, you won't feel anything because there'll be a lot of behind-the-scenes meetings. We have 9 teams that are functioning now, and each team is working on a 30, 60, 90-day plan of everything from what hospitality looks like to what it means to create a culture of belonging, to digital expansion, to innovation. We even have a quality control team that will be seeking to ensure that each team ministry is functioning efficiently. So there's a lot going on in terms of this restructuring. But again, you won't really feel it or see it. You may see subtle changes with hospitality or greeters. Anybody notice a subtle change when you come in on Sundays? What's the change? Welcome home. No, that's not the change. See, that's old. We talking about the welcome home. Yeah. Yes, Faye. Huh? Which signage? Oh yeah, yeah. I would good catch, but yeah. So there's little subtle things you'll notice that'll be taking place, but it's really all to really always seek to be relevant. It's an interesting time right now. There's a lot of young people, even though a lot of people have kind of stopped coming to church. There's actually a lot of the younger people who are coming to church more. And we're just trying to make sure that we're relevant at FCBC. And my contention is if you're going to restructure, if you're going to do that work, don't do it when the ship is sinking. Because when the ship is sinking, you try to restructure. That's called desperation. And there's no moves made in desperation that are strong and lasting. So while things are good, while things are strong, that's when you start making shifts and changes and anticipation. I think we've been good at that. I've often kind of trusted my instinct and spirit with regard to that. The last time, and these are things you didn't necessarily know, the last time I was really, I guess, adamant about shifting some things was in 2019, where I was just really hard on our team about digital, making sure our stream is on a certain quality. And I didn't know why, I just felt it, but lo and behold, 2020, COVID comes and everything becomes digital. So I trust when I'm feeling instincts and shaping. So on top of that, we have a lot of new leaders. And so I'm not someone, and I'll say this here publicly, I'm not someone who believes in leaders by title only. I pray that by the end of this year, all the leaders we have are still leaders by the end of this year, but I don't believe in people with titles. I believe in people who serve. And so if you're going to be a leader in this church, you have a tremendous responsibility to serve in this church. And if you don't serve in this church, then I'm not interested in any title you possess. We have 10 commandments of leadership here at FCBC that our leaders know. And the last commandment is basically don't get caught up in your title, don't get caught up in this position without getting caught up in service. I said, and this is because the pastor giveth and the pastor taketh away. So I mean that. We got too much work to do, and we've done too much, and we've built too much of a reputation, an expectation in this community for people to be enamored by title and not enamored by service. So that's how we seek to function. So I just want to say that because, again, there'll be some things you'll notice, some changes you'll notice, and a lot of these changes are connected to surveys we've done the past couple of years, things that many of you all have said you want to see, but now really seeking to fulfill that. So just you'll see little things, little subtle things, and then bigger things. But we'll have this kind of, I think, official launch of FCBC 2.0 in 2027. You know, I don't know how we'll celebrate it, but we'll do that. The other thing is we have to be mindful in prayer. We have a group on Monday. We'll be leaving for Egypt. Yeah. Oh, you going? Y'all going? Who told y'all could come? What? And y'all pray for me. Deacon Vic said I looked like I was about to bust a blood vessel last night in the meeting. Some of these questions, man. Some of my people, boy. You know, people know me. I have a poker face. Oh, let me tell you about my little secrets. People tell you, I am great at a poker face. You won't know. I don't give nothing away. Now, always know, when I do, it's intentional. I want people to know I'm upset. So I was hoping that people was looking at the cues to my face last night and let that kind of tame down some of these questions that was coming, because I was getting quite annoyed. Because, you know, a lot of questions, I'm going to say a lot of questions were asked really made it clear that folk don't read. That they don't read the emails that the company sent. And even then look at let me tell you, they did a great, Signature Tours is amazing, who we've been working with, in terms of being on things, sharing things, information. And about a month or so ago, everybody who's going, by the way, there's 188 people going. So everybody who's going from Signature Tour sent a box to your house, a small little package, and in it were the bag tags. They even had a map of Cairo, the place we're going. They had the itinerary for the day, which we already had now because they were emailing everything. They had also a card, nice separate card for the places we're staying, right? Then they had even sanitizer, an adapter for your thing. And then they had, if you were traveling, your flight information. Like one person asked, I don't have an e-ticket. I was like, did you look at that box? Everything you needed was inside that box to see where you're going, all that. I said, on top of that, you got to check in. It's an international flight. You got to check your passport, so you got to check in. Your check-in bags. So it was just like, somebody even, now if you're in here tonight, you're the one who said it, please don't raise your hand because I'd rather not know who you are. But somebody's like, now mind you, we leaving now. And when I tell you that Signature Tours have been thorough, every single thing. Somebody was like, do we have to check in with the American Embassy in Egypt? You see my face? It was just like this. Now see here this nice person right here. What's your name? She's like, maybe they didn't travel anymore. Well, that's not the excuse. Because I'm not going to say you didn't travel. I'm going to say you ain't reading. Because if I give you everything you need to know about your trip, covering every potential thing you could ever ask, and you ask questions that are right in all the information that was sent, that means you ain't doing what, Courtney? There we go. See? You say didn't get the box? They didn't open it, right? They didn't open it. And if they open it, and then they read it. So, because let me just say about this trip, and it's all in the information. We each have bus assignments. We have guides on the trip. We'll be on all the buses, taking us from point A to point B to point C. We ain't just going to Egypt and chilling, talking about every man for himself. It's a whole guided trip, every aspect of it. And so I get there's some folk who ain't traveled before. But can I give you the real humdinger? I hope this wasn't Vic who asked this question. I know, Vic, you asked about the glasses. I want to beat you up about that one, all right? Because, brother, some people confiscate what? No, they're not. They're going to pull your glasses. Stop going to that foolish stuff. That's the problem. There's something that AI does called hallucinations. Yeah, because he was like, yeah, how they going to know you got on recording? That's my point. Unless you go, yeah, but who looking like that? TSA ain't. Somebody asked, can you bring a digital camera? I was like, you got a phone? You bring your phone? That's a digital camera. This is the one. I know Vic ain't asked this question, but I'm not trying to pump you out, but it was like, they was like, here go a question that was asked last night. Is there a casino in Cairo? Is there a casino? I was like, I made that face right there. That face I just gave, that's the face I made. Somebody asked another question, but then I found out it wasn't Vic, but Deacon Vic was interested. It was like, can we go hot air ballooning? You said, yeah. Now, they have it available, but they do hot air ballooning. Now, but here's the thing. Those are things, realities you can experience once we get there. I just want to get to the place. I just want to get there and just get there. Then don't. Need someone, you can always get your laundry done. How much laundry costs? Now, I said, I didn't know when we went to India, what's the weather going to be like? You got a phone? Oh, it was them kind of questions. I was getting tight last night. I was intentionally showing my face because I wanted people to rethink the questions, and I wanted them to see my angst on my face last night. Yeah. You missed the call? No, you'd have been fine because you'd have been like everybody just sitting there chilling and listening. But you'd have been fine. But there was just some folk was like, oh, Brad told you, go ahead. Right, you doing the most. You doing the most. And here's the thing. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. It's a riverboat. That's that's no, it's not like that. If you ever seen like Viking riverboat cruises, you saw a picture of the ship. But the point is again, here it is. If it didn't say it in all the information, it ain't happening. You been well. Who asked last night? You didn't ask again last night. Okay, maybe he anticipated. He said it last night. Yeah, and then the follow up to the Egyptian night was you got purchased stuff. So I said, oh, I don't need no Egyptian night. I ain't buying no outfits for what? I'm Egyptian enough. I'm Egyptian enough. So but it was interesting last night, to say the least. Oh, you was there on too? Are you going? Okay, who's going? Who's in here? Who's going to Egypt? Oh, all y'all. So y'all all looking at my face last night. Good. We gonna have a good time. Your niece is going? Excellent. Let me tell you, there was one moment, there was one moment I bust out laughing. That Brad actually was funny. Because I already got some prepared for people who come late. So let me tell you right now, if you want to see my angst, come late on the bus. And they will tell you, all our leaders will tell you, when it comes to coming late, I do not, because I'm going to embarrass you. I'm going to embarrass you. You come late. So if you got to be on the bus at 8, you better be up at 5:30 if you know it take all day long. I don't do that to be on time. It's to be late. I don't do late when it comes to being on the bus, especially, and he made it clear. We have appointments. We have set appointments. And this is what I like that he said. This was funny. He said, if you're a minute late, you're going to have to sing on your bus. That's okay. He said, if you're 2 minutes late, you're going to sing and dance. But here's the part. He said, if you're 3 minutes late, you're going to sing and dance, but it won't be on the bus because we gone. I was like, I know that's right. We out. We out. Because we got bus captains. I'm going to tell the bus driver, listen, guys, if it ain't, let's go. They'll figure it out tomorrow. They'll figure it out tomorrow if they come up there late. And I'm only going to give grace to some of our seniors. And that it ain't going to be a whole lot of grace. But I'm telling you, because I've done these trips before, in not this large group, but it's critical that everybody honors everything, pays attention, comes on time, and respects everyone else. Don't be that person that the bus is sitting there waiting for. Don't be that person. So you in another country, and we got things to do. And if you look at the itinerary, it's an active itinerary, very active. So the first few days, and then someone asks, when we get to like now going out of Luxor, are we having to catch a plane back? And that was the first one that set me off, because I said, wait a minute. On the itinerary, in the box, it says it. So it was like, okay, so y'all just not gonna read nothing. Y'all just gonna be here. So I also told folk, it's an international flight. It ain't like going to Jamaica. Because people think Jamaica might be almost a U.S. flight at this point. But I said, so try to get there 3 hours ahead of time. Because we got a foreign flight, 3 hours, right? Ran as a foreign flight attendant. I'm telling you, because I had to experience one time traveling, and it was late. I ain't gonna say why it was late, but it was late. And I got there about an hour and a half before the flight, and they was like, you going tomorrow, clearly. You ain't going today. And to ensure I didn't miss it, I got a hotel by JFK and stayed there because, you don't play. We went to South Africa. We had one person it was nothing but grace, because they got to the airport like an hour before the flight. And I told him, I said, brother, that's grace that you got on this. And because they normally don't even play that. But, get there on time. I told everybody, double check, make sure you got everything. The worst feeling in the world is get to the airport, be like, I forgot my passport. That's the worst feeling in the world. That's horrible. And I never had that happen, but I know it's horrible. Yeah. So, yeah, that's right. TSA is not fun. They're not getting paid. I don't even know about liking that part. I don't know. I need TSA to get paid before I leave out here. I need to get some bread before I get up there. They be going through security, like, whatever. Yeah, I don't need that, you know. But I'm looking forward to an amazing trip. But the weather question really got me though. What's the weather? Because man, you got a phone. Like, does the hotel room have a safe? Call the hotel and ask them. Does it have a refrigerator? This is why you can't be this person when you leading people because you'll never get done. You can't be. They just excited. No, you can't be that way when you leading people by yourself. You can't. When you leading people, you gotta be very clear about what we doing. You gotta set boundaries and what we gonna do because folk will always push it. If you say, well, just try to get here on top. No. No. Because when you leading folk, there's always gonna be a few people who gonna let you make them an example. And I have no problem making an example of people. I'm gonna tell you right now, I've been doing this too long, and some folk don't get it until they see the consequences. When you come run out there and we supposed to leave at 8 and you come out 8:15 and there's no buses found, I bet you don't miss the next day. Especially because I'll be the one. Let's say today you missed the bus and we had to leave, and I realize you the person because when your bus captain realized you're not there and it's past time, and we come back and I see you, I'm gonna tell you everything you missed. I'm gonna find you out. Oh my God! I don't even care if it was terrible. I'm like, oh my God. Should have been there. Life changing. My whole spirit shifted. I'm going to go through all of that and make you feel bad because you ain't had no business being late. I'm just saying. So anyway, that was that part. The other part was, this is politics. But listen, I want to be supportive of our new mayor. But my concerns before about promising things that are not plausible. And what I don't like, and I say it is, whatever. What I don't like, though, is the way it's being explained. So if I say there's 5 things I want to do, right? And the 5 things I want to do can only be done through state approval. That's one. If you voted for me because of those 5 things, and maybe you don't know, right, that those 5 things I'm promising I can't do, but you're excited because those 5 things sound good, but maybe you don't know how politics goes in this state. And so now what you see if you've been watching the news, here's the move. Watch this move. Well, if the governor doesn't agree to raise taxes, we're going to have to raise property tax in the city. That's a move. Huh? Yeah, 9.5% to raise property tax, and that trickles all the way down to people who rent to make up the budget. But look at the move. Well, the governor don't want to raise taxes on the wealthy. Well, the governor said before you won, he ain't raising no taxes. And the governor's not going to raise taxes in an election year. Let's be clear. She's running for governor again. And then you got to go through the state legislature. And then the whole, remember, the $12 billion deficit that it came out that wasn't really a $12 billion deficit. See, you can't start this way. You can't, because now we're going to blame everybody else. And then, I'm going to raise taxes because the governor don't. Brother. You got to come differently, because then that's going to very quickly start to undermine your term. When people start, wait a minute, because people are holding them to the fire on it, So running is easy, governing is difficult, period. And sometimes people who don't, one thing I don't like about sometimes politics, I'm a little political junkie. One of the things I don't like about it is that most people don't make informed decisions. It's just reality. They don't make informed decisions. And I'm not saying it can't be done. It is difficult. It's like, and I'm saying this, and I'm not trying to be funny, but I'm just saying, let's say when you were younger, let's say you worked at McDonald's, right? Because I had a lot of friends. I didn't work, you did? Yeah, you'd have been my friend, because I always got the hookups. I know you did. One of my boys, when he was in college, he had to get a job, and he worked at McDonald's while we was in college. But every night he worked that last shift, he would come all that food into the dorm. I'd be waiting at his dorm room, bro. And let's say you was managing a shift at McDonald's. Is it actually feasible, do you think? This is no I'm not being mad about running the shift at McDonald's. But if you're a shift manager at McDonald's, and this is going to sound a little outrageous, but I hope you get the point. Do you think it's feasible to go from being a shift manager at McDonald's to being the city commissioner? All right? That's a big jump. That's a super stretch and jump. So the problem is that because of the way we do politics in this country, is that you actually can elect the person, the mayor, with no executive level leadership experience. And you go from managing an office of 10 to a city government with 300,000 employees. So we don't make decisions based on who can govern well. We make decisions based on, well, he got a great social media campaign or she has that is not how you pick people to lead. You have to pick people who you believe can, one, get the job done, and two, whose policy is in alignment with the issues that are critical to you, right? Because sometimes some of the things, promises elected officials make, I'm not just talking about the mayor, I'm talking about across the board, are promises that they just can't do. And they're banking on the fact, they're banking on your ignorance. That's what they're banking on. They're banking on ignorance. And then you say, oh man, I'm gonna elect so-and-so. They said we're gonna, be able to ride the bus for free. No. Yeah, that don't happen. I know you were laughing when you heard that. Because again, MTA, the train system, the bus system in New York City is not run by the city. It's not run by the mayor. It's run by the state. So you can't make promises by MTA and you don't make the decisions for MTA. So it's a difficult thing when you see, and it was painful to watch. I love the energy. I love the fact that young people came out and voted. I love the fact he did one of the hardest things you could do in a campaign. That is to awaken a new demographic of voters. That's tough to do. That is hard to do in any campaign. So to do that is a Herculean effort. But the basis of it was problematic. The basis, well, it's not a lie. It's the political thing. It's the sleight of hand. It's just you say you're going to do this to get people, and then you can't do it, and then we flip it and be like, oh, it's their fault. Problem is, it leads to a lot of disappointment. All right? I was preaching in Albany on Sunday. That's why I wasn't here. It was a Black, Latino, Asian Legislative Caucus. And they had a Sunday service, and I preached. And, I was really excited about preaching, Betty. Because imagine me preaching to a room full of elected officials, and I cut no slack. Zero. I was bringing out all the guns. And a few things happened. Good. I'm going to tell you, some good things happened. First of all, it was powerful service. The governor was supposed to leave. The governor stayed for the whole thing. Came to me afterwards as she was walking up to the stage. She said, everything you said we needed to hear, and I've never heard it put like this before. So I was like, okay, great. No. So I was like, okay. But then they told me the team that was handling me was like, oh, do you want to go to the governor's reception? I was like, yeah. So a lot of people in there, everybody, if you've ever been to caucus weekend, it's what it is. A lot of hobnobbing and carrying on and partying. To the point they had me at the host hotel. It was the Hilton. I went downstairs to try, because, it was so many people, they weren't doing room service, because I got in there late. And then I had to go downstairs. When I went downstairs, lit ain't even the word. I was like, what manner of madness is going on? It was like a whole party. Drinks everywhere, folks stumbling. These elected officials now. And political folk. And I was like, Lord. So I called the guy, I said, look, man, there's a lot of people down here, and I'm trying to get food. So he came down and got people. He said, we're going to get you the food. First of all, when they brought me through this back entrance of the Hilton and I was, people see you certain, I don't see myself a certain way. He's like, because, Pastor, I know if we come through the main lobby, you're going to get stopped. I know you're tired. So he took me through the back door. Never go through the back entrance of a hotel. You don't want to see the things. It's not nice. That make you not want, like when we walk in there with these old mattresses and the dude said, don't touch those. I was like, I was like, I don't want to see all these holes. I don't want to see all this. And so, but here I go, no food. I go downstairs. And man, from the minute I got off the elevator, Pastor Mike. I was like, okay. Now, I don't do nothing for me, but that wasn't the problem. So I come down, and there was some people there who were connected to FCBC or watch service, and they were like, you said, are you staying down here? I was like, no, I'm just trying to get something to eat. They was like, yeah, you may want to leave this scene shortly. They were serious, too. Like, it's about to get a little ridiculous. And then the entertainment that night, that was Beanie Man and Mr. Cheeks. Beanie Man, so I was like, okay. Then the Sunday, they had another concert, and 50 Cent was performing. I was like, what is going on? Huh? Right, they sure did, because they had to do a private jet for him in and out and then pay him. 50 Cent. So anyway, let me get back to, I digress because I was caught up. So I go to the reception of the governor, and I'm standing like way in the back, and people, cheering and all this stuff, and they introduce the governor. And she comes out and she says, I'm fired up. She was like, I'm excited. She said, how many of you were at service this morning? She said, Reverend Walrond was on fire. She goes through all this. And she said two things that were powerful. She said, I was inspired and put in my place at the same time. So I was like, because I sure did. I was coming for the guns on them, boy. So, man, the title of the sermon was, you can be in it, but not of it. In the world, but not of this world. So it was good. But anyway, so it was an interesting weekend. And then last Thursday, I spoke at the inauguration for the new president of Morehouse. And that was amazing, a friend of mine. And so it was great. But it was a good past few days. No, stop. Here you go. Ain't no time. Now it's 7:37. That's the time. But for those who don't know that's when I ran for Congress, a campaign theme. That was the time. So anyway, we're ending Thurman tonight, and Jesus and the Disinherited. And fret not, because I promise you this book is coming back. This is a book that I've used numerous times because it's such a good book. And if you remember, part of my rationale for this book is giving you some tools that I think can help you critique right now. My biggest frustration is that there's a lot of people upset about what's going on politically and even culturally, but anger is not a critique. And so as a believer, we have the tools to critique what's going on. It ain't just that to say somebody's racist or somebody's whatever. We have the tools to actually critique, and our tools of criticism have to be theological. Thurman does that. Thurman sets up how you critique empire, how you critique, imperialism, all this is through the teachings of Jesus that he does this. And sometimes we're so enamored by using Jesus as the center of our faith that we forget to use Jesus as a teacher to show us what it means to live particular ways, because the Jesus movement is about how you show up in the world. It's not I don't like it, because I was watching a clip that somebody sent me. How they were saying the biggest reason people are leaving churches because of the way churches operate, and even because of leadership and how they these images that are created of the church, which are problematic for me too. But for me, if you're going to be someone who teaches people and who leads congregations, for me, how do you lead? What is at the heart of what you do? And the heart of what you do is not about, being flashy or showing folk how to prosper. It's about teaching people the ways and the teachings of Jesus. That is what Jesus said. He said, you make disciples by baptizing and teach what I taught. And so we have the responsibility, not just as pastors and leaders, but people who are followers, to teach what Jesus taught. Unfortunately, most of our people and many of in our communities who know about church, they don't get to be taught what Jesus taught. They get to be taught about Jesus, and that's different. Whole movements and theology are shaped about Jesus, but don't teach what Jesus taught. It's an easy understanding. I've been teaching here for 20-something years. If you decide to build a movement based on my personality but not my teachings, it's problematic. So you build a whole movement about how amazing I am, but you don't repeat anything I've said. That's Christianity. Christianity has become a movement about Jesus but not teaching what Jesus taught. That is the problem. That's the biggest problem. Because if all the people who claim to be Christian actually understood their Christianity to be in alignment with the teachings of Jesus, the world would look a lot different right now. Our communities would look a lot different right now. But most people, a lot of people who claim to be Christian are not familiar with Jesus' teachings, are not interested in Jesus' teachings. They're interested in being a Christian. As you've heard me say numerous times, being a Christian is easy. Being a disciple is not. And Jesus did not say go make Christians. He said make disciples. And so Christianity is what has been formed after the death of Jesus. Jesus was not a Christian. Jesus was born a Jew, lived as a Jew, died as a Jew, and was not about starting another movement. If you read the last chapter, you actually read that line in Howard Thurman's book, that Jesus was not interested in starting some religion. If Jesus was interested in, that was not. Jesus was seeking to strengthen and deepen people's walk and understanding of God. And if you remember, Jesus also talking to poor, oppressed people. Poor, that is who he's speaking to, people who are like him. Most of his movements are in that space, that area, the lower Judean Valley. Poverty is high, oppression is high, and the Roman Empire is dominating the people. And he's speaking to people like him who are being dominated, being oppressed, being conquered, women being raped, people dying of malnutrition, people not having any kind of social safety. Nothing is happening. And this is who he's talking to. It's hard when you read the Jesus narrative, or even read a book like Thurman, to now equate the Jesus movement with power and opulence and money. You can't do it because that is not the heart of the Jesus movement. It is not that to be a Christian means that you now live this life being broke. No. It means, though, if you teach Jesus, you have to always keep Jesus in his historical, social, and cultural context so that you don't you don't fall for misappropriations of Jesus, and you don't misappropriate Jesus, all right? Hopefully in these weeks we've been studying Thurman, that has become clear in terms of what this movement is like. A lot of people like to do church. They don't even like to follow Jesus' way of doing it, right? I tell people, even when I said this sermon a few weeks ago about render unto God what is God's, unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Now, I always have to hit some people who are theologians or Christians with some harsh realities about Jesus because we love using Jesus' name and tagging Jesus onto some stuff that sounds right. Just because it sounds right don't mean it is right. The way of liberation in the Jesus movement is not an armed rebellion against Caesar. I want you to hear that. Now, if you choose to do that, you can do it, but don't say I'm following the footsteps of Jesus, right? In fact, we do it because politically, even when pastors critique current administration from the pulpit, we do it because, or some do it because politically we feel we have to do something, say something. I do something and say something when appropriate, but my primary model for what I do is Jesus, which Jesus does not spend his energy every moment talking about Caesar. Not because Caesar is not worthy of being talked about, but because you got to decide, is the power I have better suited to critique Caesar or to liberate the people Caesar is dominating? That's the work of liberation. So if you want to liberate, you liberate the minds of people who have been oppressed. Because people who have been oppressed, and if you've been oppressed long enough, you don't need Caesar around anymore because you'll do Caesar's work. You'll maintain the mechanisms of oppression without Caesar being present, without the overseer being present, without the taskmaster being present. Because when oppressive structures have become deeply ingrained and internalized, you'll do the work of oppression as the oppressed. You don't need the oppressor around anymore. So Jesus comes to liberate the minds of the oppressed, to set them free spiritually and mentally, because there's no way they had the power to go against Rome. Can't do it. They don't have the power. They don't have the resource to go against Rome. So if you can't destroy Rome, you destroy Rome's lock on the mind of the people that Rome oppresses. Because you can be free emotionally, spiritually, even if you're not free physically. And that's important. Goes to what we're going to talk about a little bit tonight. Because what it is that even if I'm living in an oppressive regime and under oppressive circumstances and under, occupation like Jewish people were, I don't have to then allow the thing that is destroying me to become the thing that I then mimic. That's important. Because the real damage is done when the thing that wounded you, you begin to think that's the way. And you begin to wound and damage others. So that is what is important to understand. And as I said from that pulpit about that sermon about Caesar, is that Caesar, if you make it about, I don't say it often, but if you make it about the president, for example, you have missed the whole point. If you make it about who's in the White House, you've missed it. Because who's in the White House represents a system that is holding that person up. So you can't, if you just know how to critique the person, but not critique the system, your critique is flawed a little bit. Especially if the person represents a system. It is not that person that is a target. It is the system that they uphold and that upholds that person. Right? The mechanisms of oppression in this culture. The mechanisms of oppression, you always hear it. Materialism, capitalism, consumerism. And militarism. Those are the mechanisms of oppression. And you may say, okay, I can't stand the fact that all these billions of dollars are used for military purposes. I can't stand it. But then there's a blind spot. You don't like how the government spends money. That's militarism, right? But you love being a capitalist. And you love the rewards of capitalism. Now, we're in a capitalistic regime, and they say, people tell you, there's nothing better than a free market economy. Yeah, but in this brand of capitalism, this brand of free market economy, it needs poverty to survive. And so any system, in order for people to succeed and grasp obscene wealth, means that poverty has to exist. You can't just say, you don't, as a believer and follow Jesus, your critique ain't just an economic critique. It's a spiritual critique. It's a social critique. Because now, does that line up with the teachings of Jesus? Would being a follower of Jesus means that you wholeheartedly support an economic system that has to have poverty to survive? That's how you critique it. So any system that reinforces poverty, because capitalism can't function without poverty. In order for people to be capitalists and to have this obscene wealth, there has to be poverty. Right? So let's translate a little bit. I've said this before. If I own a business, if we own a business, right? You two, I'm using you for intentionally too. My young sisters here. And you two here and I, we got 3 businesses, right? Let's say your business, at one time, your profit was $500 million a year. Right? And your profit was $400 million. And my profit was $600 million a year. As a business maker. All right. Now, all of a sudden, we were living in a particular age, in the old age of where America was manufacturing and all these things, we getting paid. Well, then all of a sudden, what did I say your profit was? And I said 6, right? I'm old. So 5, 4, and 6. Now, watch this. Watch this. Now, instead of depending on manufacturing here, you offshore your manufacturing. And you offshore the manufacturing in countries that don't have regulations. So now you went from $500 million profit to $1 billion profit because, and you got that because in these factories offshore, you paying people $2 a day because there's no regulations, there's no unions, there's none of this stuff. In some country, $2 a day. So you just double your profits to $1 billion. You double your profits, right? Well, let's say, from 500 to $1 billion, you at 800 million now, and I'm at 1.2 billion. That's my profit now. Now you think because some president gonna come and tell me, watch this, bring jobs back to America. And by the way, we've been doing this profit thing for years now. So we went from 1 billion to 800. Now you at 2, you at 1, I'm at like 3, and you want me to come back and bring jobs back to America and kill and slash my profit? I ain't doing that. So when you hear a person running for president say we're going to bring manufacturing back to America, know that they're lying. See, if you don't understand that, What's going on? You start thinking, well, he said he's going to bring jobs back to man. No, he's not. Because he can't make a corporation do nothing. And you're not going to convince me, for the sake of just being good and nice, to go from 600 million to my 3 billion in profit and be like, you know what, I should do this. This is the right thing to do. It don't work that way. So when someone tells you they're going to do that, it's a lie. Right? It's a lie. So you got to be able to read what's going on. And at the heart of the critique, and Mr. King, tell Dawn to kill that. So I'm going to stop. Now, I am going somewhere with this. And this may seem like I'm talking about politics and all this stuff, but I'm actually talking about this book. Because this is what Thurman is trying to give you the tools to understand. How do you critique an unjust system? And here it is how he begins. What does the teachings of Jesus have to say to people who live with their backs against the wall? Because Jesus' teachings don't say, you know what, just keep on praying and we'll be all right. His teachings don't say that. You know, we don't say that. But if you don't understand the teachings, you have no equipment to critique theologically or spiritually. All right? So I'll stop. So in this book, the last chapter tonight is on love. And I'm going to give a few lines. You know, my page is a little different than some of your pages. But the opening line of the last chapter is something you may have heard me say 1,000 times here. The religion of Jesus, not about Jesus, the religion of Jesus makes the love ethic central. The underlying ethos of the Jesus movement is love. 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 We talked about this last time. That love ethic of Jesus' teachings is why it's so painful and why it's so difficult. Because it is not sentimental love. It is love in action. Love is not, it's just like love in relationships. How do you know somebody loves you? Tell me, I'm just a question. How do you know somebody loves you? By their actions. Because if I tell you I love you, but I keep disrespecting you or saying negative things to you, that's not love. If I abuse you, that's not love. No matter what I say, because my actions are betraying my words. Right? And if I love you, but you have to shrink in my presence, that ain't love. That's not love. If I love you and you can't fully express yourself, it's not love. If I love you and you're afraid of any retribution from me because somehow you didn't behave or act right, that's not love. They're markers of love, which means that there's some people who will substitute that stuff for love. Now, if you accept conditions that are steeped in physical, personal, emotional abuse from someone or something that claims they love you, it ain't that person you got to check, it's you. Why do I submit myself to not only a toxic space, but a destructive one? And one that undermines my significance and my authenticity and my uniqueness and all the great things that God has made me to be. So any loving relationship that diminishes you, any relationship that claims to be steeped in love that diminishes you ain't love. And some people need to hear that. Because oftentimes our love choices ain't love choices at all. Right? But the underlying ethos of the Jesus movement is love. Thurman then, if you read this chapter, you better have. Thurman then says, basically, there's 3 groupings that you got to love. He talks about loving in the book, if you remember. You know, one, I'm going to use my words, not Thurman's words, but I can't use Thurman's words. And so, remember, my pages are a little different. Yeah, this is the original printing. So my page is a little bit off because yours have a preface that's a little longer. Because he begins with something, the phrase, what is the greatest commandment? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind, or your might, depending. And your neighbor as yourself. Right? Now, Jesus in that statement, and it's in the first page, is quoting the Old Testament. That's saying that ain't the Jesus thing. Right? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, or your might, in the translation. And your neighbor as yourself. All right? Now, if you a follower of Jesus, and Jesus says, this is the greatest commandment, off gate, I got a way to critique your behavior. Because one of a few things, because when that statement is made, if you know the story, because in the book, Thurman takes it to the logical place where Jesus asked this question by the lawyer who tried to trip him up. And then the lawyer was like, I think there's a loophole here. He was like, well, Jesus, who's my neighbor? And Jesus tells the story of the Good Samaritan, right? The point is that this lawyer, whoever, tried to find a way out of honoring what Jesus believed was the greatest commandment. Because in his mind, there got to be a litmus test, a limit on who I can call my neighbor. Because if Jesus says the greatest commandment is love the Lord your God and then your neighbor as yourself, that means love of neighbor is equal to love of God. And so what the lawyer said is, well, then I need to know who's my neighbor. Because the first thing we like to say, well, my neighbor must look like me. Or be in the same socioeconomic status as me. Who's the neighbor? Jesus tells this amazing story of the Good Samaritan. At the end of it, the Good Samaritan, which most folk don't know is a problematic title for Jews at the time. Because Samaritan and Jews are enemies, and here's a deep thing. Samaritan are descendants of Jews. They're the Jews who kind of mix with other races, and they become the enemy because they're not viewed as being pure Hebrew. So because, watch this, they're not pure Hebrew, there's natural enmity between them. So Jesus in this story that we call the Good Samaritan makes someone who's an enemy the neighbor. Now that's the second level of love. Because remember, the first level of who you got to love is the people within your people who challenge who you are. Remember that first one, the religious leaders in those people. You got to love them. Even though they don't believe you, they undermine you, they attack you, you got to love them. This is hard because these are the people who you think should love you, but don't love you. And the second ones are like the Samaritan, people you're supposed to not like because they're not part of the family. So you got problems with the people in your family don't love you. Then you got folk who ain't part of the family you're supposed to love. Right? So you can't be going around talking about, here's the problem. Well, I'm unapologetically black Christian. Yeah, but you got some brothers and sisters who white, who Latino, who Asian, who all these things, and you got to love them too. You unapologetically black, but you ought to be also unapologetically a disciple. And here's the part we don't want to hear. I love being black man. I love it. I love it. Like I thank God that God made me this way. I love the fact that I love it. But watch this. Here's the part that believers don't want to hear, who want to follow Jesus. My discipleship trumps my blackness. Oh, yeah. That's the part you don't want to hear. That's where the line gets drawn. When your discipleship trumps your blackness, it doesn't dismiss it, but it requires that you no longer see life through the lenses shaped by oppression. Because remember, race is a social construct to justify economic moves. Race is only a creation to justify slavery in this country. Race is designed to justify slavery. Slavery is about money. This is about a free market economy. No, it was a free labor economy. So you had to justify, you had to justify why you going across the waters to enslave people. You got to justify it. They're inferior. They're subhuman. They're black. And white is superior to black. You have to create race to justify brutality and dehumanization. So if race is a social construct created to justify economic deprivation and enslavement and oppression, when you use that as the primary mark of identification, you are participating in something designed to undermine you in the first place. Because like I heard a long time ago, ain't but one race. See, God is amazing. Because in that, and I want you to hear this clearly, and those who watch it, because somebody will go, see, he trying to say that our blackness don't matter. You better stop that. I ain't say that. I started by saying how glad I am. I thank God, that I look the way I look. I always tell folks, I don't just say black. I say, I love that I was kissed by the sun. I love that. I don't know what I love it. Every part of it I love. But then, when I think about my discipleship and following Jesus, something else got to happen to elevate, not minimize, my humanity. If when you see me, all you see is a black man, and I start operating that narrative, you control my language. See, this is why, since we in this Black History Month still, Martin Luther King made this little shift in the end of his life. Civil rights is about fighting for the rights of, in this country, of the oppressed black people, with a legacy of oppression and all that. He stops that language. It becomes what? Human rights. Wait a minute. So towards the end of his life, he shifts to focusing on human rights and economic injustice. And all hell literally breaks loose for him. Right? Because if it's just about black folk in America, you don't care what happens to people of color in Vietnam. But when you start realizing this is about humanity and human beings being slaughtered, so my stance against the war is because I am pro-human, human rights. And then at the end of his life, he says economic justice because, and he said the flaw of the civil rights movement. So it's like if you try to copy the civil rights movement today and you try to figure out why we can't do like the civil rights movement, please understand that at the end of his life, Martin Luther King understood the flaw in the civil rights movement. So if you're still trying to repeat a system that the person who was one of the foremost leaders said it was a flaw, then your whole appropriation of it is flawed. If it was flawed and you're trying to copy it, it's flawed. And here was a flaw he identified. First time he said it was in a speech at Stanford University. He said he realized what good, y'all heard it before, I didn't know where he said it maybe. What good is it to fight for access to a lunch counter but can't afford the hamburger? So you're going to fight to get a lunch counter, sit there and be like, I can't get none. You got a seat, but stomach still empty. That was the real critique. So something is flawed in this system. With all this wealth in this country, and you got people hungry. This is what convicted Robert F. Kennedy when Marion Wright Edelman took him down to Mississippi while he's running for president, and he saw how people were living in abject poverty. And in his mind, this can't be America. And everything shifts for his focus. And of course, when you start seeing the economic injustice in this country, I pick you off because now you're meddling with the heart of this economy, or the heart of this country. It's the money. It's the economic system. Right? Yeah, because it requires me not to see my life through the lens of a system that based on race, that is a social construct, right? It doesn't mean you deny the realities of what racism has done. You can't do that. But you need to be able to critique racism. And if you don't understand that racism and rather race is a social construct, we got a problem off the beginning. It ain't real. It's not real. Now, if you're a Christian and you say this, if you're a believer, you say, well, God has made human beings in God's likeness and image, right? We agree on that? Who agrees with that? We're made in the likeness and image of God. Who agrees? Don't be scared. Put your hands up. Let me see your hand. Okay, come on. Some of y'all ain't putting your hands up. What you think you made it? Likeness and image of God, right? Okay. Anybody in here look the same? Is everybody of the same color? Everybody's on a man. Everybody's on a woman. All this diversity, and yet still made in the likeness and image of God, which means that the likeness and image of God is not about externalities. Ooh, something deeper than that. Because we all say this is all flesh, it's going to fade away. It can't be this. But there's diversity in God's imagination. We all look different. We sound different. We talk different. We walk different. And yet still bear the same image. So when you start saying, so watch this, the reason why I have to create race to dehumanize you is I have to create a mechanism and a language and a system to justify why you're not my neighbor and why I don't have to respect your humanity. So if I relegate you to an animal, I don't have to respect you as a human. It is what I need to justify my brutality and my maltreatment and my economic system that is based on free labor. Because if you think that offshoring is a profit, think about a profit when you ain't paying nobody. For centuries, you ain't got to pay no employees who doing all that hard work. So all this wealth in parts of the South and the North generated on the backs of slaves. And then people say things like, my granddaddy, well, I don't own no slaves, and my dad don't own no slave. What my great-great-granddaddy did is not me. Yeah, well, you reaping the benefits. That wealth is in your family, and reject that then. If you're going to reject your connection to reject what came with it. So when Jesus talks about love, it's loving the people. It's like, we family, but you hating on me. You trying to destroy me. I got to love you. Or you're an enemy because the people I grew up with said you're supposed to be the enemy. But I got to love you. And those two you can negotiate. But the third group he said you got to love is the empire. It's Rome. You got to love that too. Boy. See, if Jesus came here and was like, I know you don't like the president, but you better start praying and loving him. You'd be like, yeah, I don't know, Jesus. I'm just go ahead and go back home. Cause you got a question? Let me get this microphone. And Lent, no, you had it. You got to use it. Don't be afraid of it, because people got to hear what you're saying. And then take that mic, Randy, back there to Lynn. Lynn, raise your hand so Randy can see you. Lynn, you raise your. Well, how are we going to see that? Interesting. Now listen. So you say you're going to get the mic. I was talking. Here was Lynn. So I said, get the mic. Is here. Hold on the mic here.
I'm a little nervous.
That's all right. Go ahead.
You talked about these three systems and loving those systems.
Not systems. Three sects of people. Of the Jesus, what Thurman is saying, there's three different groupings, so to speak. Yeah.
Three groupings. What happens, or do you know any parts of the Bible or in this book? I haven't read it, where it talks about if those three if love. if loving those groups could be detrimental to you, and we hear about self-love often, where does self-love come in if loving these groups may be too detrimental and you want to pour back into yourself? And the idea of self-love compared to these groupings that may be difficult to do or harmful to do.
Yeah, good question. For Jesus, it's not either or, it's both and. You can multitask. You can love you and love others too, right? Because it says love your neighbor as yourself. So you have to love yourself. And you don't love others to the negation of yourself, and you don't love you to the negation of others. So it goes hand in hand, right? And that's the difficulty of it. See, that's the thing. Why it's easy to, it's easy to be a Christian. It's hard to be a disciple. Because it requires you to see, not only to see the world different, but to show up different in the world you see different. You caught that? It requires you to show up different in the world that you see differently. I think some of us, even in this moment, as we fight against injustice, we don't realize how much the injustice has found a foothold in our spirit. We don't realize how much the injustice actually controls us. You get up every day mad and you scroll and you read and you do all this stuff that make you mad about that. You actually don't realize how it's controlling you. Because while you scrolling all the things in your echo chamber, because the algorithms know what you like to watch, and you seeing all these things over and over and over again, you know what's lacking? While you seeing all the things that make you angry, all the things that reinforce the racism you can't stand, all the things that reinforce the economic deprivation you can't stand, and you're seeing these articles and seeing these clips, you look over and over again, and not one thing you've looked at has cast another vision for what is possible. Because to follow Jesus doesn't mean you just critique what is. What's the other vision you hold on to? Because Martin Luther King, I'm going to keep going to King because, we had the death of Jesse Jackson today, who's a disciple of King, right? Jesse Jackson, since he passed away, let's talk about this for a second, right? I shared on a radio show that I do on Tuesdays today because, of course, Reverend Sharp was talking about Jesse Jackson. That's one of his mentors, and I shared. When I was 13 years old, this is before I really went left. But I never forget this. When I was 13 years old, my father took me out in Hempstead. Jesse Jackson was making a campaign stop along Island and came to this theater in Hempstead, New York. My father took me there. I remember the first time I ever been to anything like this, a political rally. And I was not quite 13 yet. And I remember going there that night and being completely mesmerized. I never heard anybody talk like this. I never seen anybody, because I grew up as a little boy in the church that was United Methodist that was very calm, right? So I never saw anybody speak and people just all over the place. And I was like, my God. And his words were so powerful. And at 12 years old, 12, 13, they were resonating with me, And he used to do his, Jesse had his stick, though, but it was powerful at the time. That I am somebody. Man, when you find yourself repeating that, it's like our affirmations. When you start saying that I am, that's why our affirmations are always I am. Because when you say I am, you're declaring something about you that you're unleashing into the universe. So that's why that I am, that's why Jesus saying I am meant something. I am. You are declaring to the universe where you stand. So when Jesse Jackson, for a 12-year-old child, hearing him say, I am somebody, and now repeating it, if no one ever told you were somebody, or no one ever told you had value, or no one ever told you had worth, to say out loud in a theater, I am somebody, did something to my 12-year-old body. And I remember being blown away at that age by what I was hearing and how it made me feel about myself. And I remember telling my father, when I was walking out, I said, that's what I want to do. Now, I know what God did in the call God put on my life, but I'm telling you, it was inspired by Jesse Jackson. Seeing that, I said, that's what I want to do. I didn't even know what that was. I didn't know nothing about being a man, but I knew that is what I wanted to be a part of, right? So when you're in that king tradition, what is the vision? Because Martin Luther King nor Jesse Jackson sat all day talking about how racist the system was, how bad. What's the vision you cast for people? If we know the system is corrupt, therefore what? What's the vision? So King don't get up there and say, I got a problem. I got a dream. It is casting an alternative vision to what we see right now. So you know what we got right now? A lot of angry folk who lack vision. A lot of mad people with no vision. We got people who we're calling leaders who are on social media, all these posts, and they talking about how bad, and they spend all day critiquing how bad it is right now. What's the vision? Because Jesus is giving a vision of a different kind of order of things. What is your vision? Because all you got is rage and anger. You can't build a movement on rage and anger. You can't even build a life on rage and anger. What is your vision? It ain't got to be a big vision for the world. Man, what's your personal vision for you? Or you the person who sit around and just talk about people all day because you are scared to attempt anything? Because I'm always suspect of people who criticize everything, but you don't take a chance on anything. I'm not impressed because you got language to critique, but not language to create. What's your vision for your life? What do you want to see personally in your life? And your vision needs to be your vision. With a capital Y-O-U-R, capital. Your vision. Not the one somebody gave you for you. Not the one somebody told you should do. Were you courageous enough to even live your life? See, you say that every week. We're in every evolving community of visionaries, dreamers, and doers who've been called by God to live the life we were created to live. You say it every week, and then you're scared of living. You say it every week. Every week. And then you hear living beneath your potential. That ain't the life that God created you to live. Or you busy copying other lives. Or not even copying, you just infatuated with other lives. What? I do not, the folk who've been around me for 20 years, I am not impressed by celebrity. I'm telling you that right now. I don't care. I can respect it, appreciate it, but you bleed like me, hurt like me, laugh like me, cry like me. I ain't got room in my life to be enamored with somebody, especially if you ain't getting no credit for waking me up today. That's the other thing about our culture. We celebratize everything. We're enamored by celebrity. And I said the other thing, no shade, and I said this last Tuesday, we still talking about Nancy Guthrie. And any kidnapping is wrong. But you know how many young black girls go missing every day? How many young Latino girls go missing every day, children? And ain't nobody running a news clip in the spin cycle for 3 weeks for them? But you're already saying in the way it's covered that some people's lives have more value. Why do they have more value? Because they connected to somebody famous and they got money. That's why in this culture, that's what capitalism teaches you to do. Put value on a hierarchy connected to worth. And those children, I was on the plane flying to Atlanta, and started watching a documentary. I had to cut it off. Too painful. It was a documentary about homeless children in Los Angeles. It was gutting me. I had to stop it. Children kicked out their homes, 12, 13, 14, living on the streets. And there was one young lady who they were following along this, because the person who was doing the documentary was following this group of kids. He was all homeless. And all of a sudden they panicked because one of the girls, 14 years old, she disappeared. Man snatched her up, who was known to get these young women for sex trafficking. And you got this happening in every major city in this country. Young children disappearing. No outrage every day in the news. None. We see here every day letting some fool dominate the media cycle. And talking about who performing at the Super Bowl this couple, they split up, and my God, who cares? I don't care. You are not defined by your bank account. But in this country, we do. And that's why that little girl, nobody knows her name. Nobody cares about her. Nobody running. The FBI ain't showing up to find out where they at. And we sit back, we have the tools to critique that. You honor the inherent dignity of every human being. And honoring the inherent dignity of every human being has nothing to do with what's in their bank account or what's their zip code. No. There's qualitatively no difference between you and any other human being. And so don't let the social construct make you think that you have less value. And just because you ain't got 1 million followers on Instagram and because you're not, that means absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things. Zero means nothing. There are people who make it mean something. It means nothing. If you got 20 followers or you got 500 followers, I'm going to tell you, in the grand scheme of things, it means nothing. I am not impressed by people who click a button but don't know me. And you got people killing themselves, getting posts, putting all kind of crazy to try to get a follower. Man, lead yourself. It's insane what we see going on now. So it ain't just the government and the president. It is a cultural problem. It ain't just a political problem. It's a cultural problem. That's the deeper issue. And it all resonates with love. My God. We tell them, if we could teach our children to love themselves, love yourself, but we got to model that. That's why I love the language of our statement. If these kids who grow up to be adults, if one or two get it, they get it. But to hear that, I am a visionary, a dreamer, and a doer. And I was born to live the life that God created me to live. And that life may not be a famous one. It may not be a sexy life. It may not be a wealthy life, but you know what? It's mine. And at least I can leave this place. I can leave this place knowing that I was a word that scares the mess out of people. One word that terrified. One word that will scare your enemies, scare the folk who come. One word. I can leave this place knowing I was authentic. That my authenticity has been and always will be my superpower. Always. You get no credit copying me. You get no credit for that. You get credit for showing up fully as you. And you got to get to the point where you're so confident with yourself that when you show up as you, you don't care if nobody likes the you that shows up. As long as you love it. And you got to be so in love with the you, especially the authentic you, that you ain't even chasing people's liking or love. They be like, because see, here it is. Here it is, Mary. I always got you all the time. Here it is, Mary. If I'm clear about me, and I said this before, if I'm clear about me, and you say to me one day, Pastor, I can't stand you. You would never say that, by the way. But if you said, oh, Pastor, I can't stand you. I'm like, okay. And then go ahead and give me some lunch. Like, you not standing me, not going to dislodge me. Because I didn't enter this season expecting everybody to love me. But I sure better expect to love me, myself. You don't love me, so what? I don't care. I don't want to talk to you no more. How am I going to survive, huh? How am I going to make it if you don't talk to me no more? Lord have mercy. Let me go end it all because you ain't talking to me. All right, let me pause for a second because we got to get out of here. Huh? Oh, yes, Lynn, go ahead while we're doing this.
I wanted to hold what?
That's all right. Come on, Mike. You want to come?
I wanted to ask you a question about liberation/revolution theology. And I also wanted to know if you read the book Caste, which for me is a follower of the new Jim Crow.
Hold on, say that again.
Okay.
That one line you said. Because I can't hear it clear. Speak up a little bit. Go ahead.
Okay.
And I know you got a heavy voice. You playing games with me tonight. Come on. Come on, you playing games. Go ahead.
There, I would like you to explain because
The mic is off. Turn it back on, Randy. Go ahead.
okay. There is a perspective that you seem to be hinting towards, which is the liberation revolution theology. So I'd like you to explain that to me, and also
Explain liberation theology.
liberation revolution theology,
Okay.
and how it is impacting what you're teaching. And I
Okay.
also want, there is a book called The New Jim Crow,
Yeah.
which is the predecessor for the book Cast,
Mm-hmm.
which is reflective of what you're teaching now.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say that.
Okay, good. Well, you know, it's funny. A lot of those, I could say it ain't, it's a secret now. One day the history books might say it. There was like what you would call like one, you hear about these secret meetings that take place between some leaders and stuff like that. Sometimes there was one here at FCBC in the fellowship hall. And all them folk was in here. Michelle Alexander, you know, Van Jones, all the people was right up in that fellowship hall. We had a whole meeting in here. And I did not walk out of that meeting feeling empowered or inspired. Right? That's another thing, because you brought up Michelle Alexander's book. Liberation theology is a flaw in what is historic liberation theology. Liberation theology is considered to be work done by a few seminal writers. One spent most of his life teaching at Union Seminary, which was the most famous one, James Cone. It was a Latin American liberation theologian by the name of Gustavo Gutierrez. And then there was a white liberation theologian back in the days by the name of Frederick Herzog, who happened to be my mentor, all right, at Duke. James Cone, Gustavo Gutierrez, Fred Herzog. Fred Herzog was the first white male to write about liberation theology at a time where they thought liberation theology could only be written by people of color in this country and outside of it. And there's been many others since then and even during the time. And the way James Cone basically said it, he had a few books, you know, Black Liberation Theology, which was famous. The other famous one was God of the Oppressed, and which basically said, and then, well, God is black, right? Here's the flaw. One, the theological constructs, the framework behind what Dr. Cone did was really based on theologian Karl Barth, who was a white theologian. And basically, what the critique of Cone was that Cone basically did the same theology as Barth, but put it in blackface. All right? It wasn't really original. And it was basically just repeating and blackenizing what had been given. The problem with that is that if you create a theology that excludes me, I don't answer that by creating one that excludes you. That's the flaw. Because if I create a mechanism that excludes you, that means you actually still control what I did. That's the point. You ain't free still. All right? So if you've been telling me all my life God is white, and I say God is black, I've not elevated the conversation. I've just changed the color. Okay? That is not liberation, actually, because I'm still being confined by the narrative I'm responding to. Right? Now, the deep thing is that we then say God is spirit. So how in the world God white or black? That's the first thing. Male or female. Like, how is that? All right? So liberation theology just says that God moves. Now, theologically, it says, it's based on some good stuff, that the idea that in the scriptures, God has been on the side of the oppressed. That God has often moved on the underside of history. I will give that. Right, on the underside of history. And that's what basically is liberation theology. Then when Cone was producing students in the 70s and 80s, then you had some of the black women who was his students saying, listen, we got a problem here because you reacted to the white folk theology, but then the women reacted to Cone's theology, and then it became not God is black, but then God is a woman. So that's womanist theology. Right? Now, all of a sudden now, it is recognizing the historical oppression of women, right? But it's still a theology in reaction to a theology that's in reaction to a theology. So at the end of the day, the white theology that excludes others, people of color, women, if you're all reacting to it, that means it's still dominating. So the idea is creating something that emerges. I personally think that the first liberation theologians, I've said it here, would enslave people in this country. They actually were doing theology. When they were hearing those white preachers talk about them, they did not accept it. They stole away and created a whole way of speaking. They created songs that spoke of liberation. They created code systems of speaking about liberation without getting killed. That's the work of theology. And they were doing it. We don't pay attention to what they did. We just sing their songs, nobody knows the trouble I've seen. You don't understand why they wrote that and what they were actually saying. You understand? They said, we're going to meet down by the river. They ain't trying to get a bath. They knew that if you follow the current of the river, you're going northward, right? Swing low, sweet chariot. Coming forth to carry me home was not about heaven. It was about getting north for freedom. Follow that north star, freedom. All them songs wasn't about going to heaven. It was about getting free now. Now. And also understanding that there's a flaw in this theology that reinforces oppression. They did this work. We just don't pay attention to them. But they did that work in their teaching. So it was powerful, So liberation theology, to me, Jesus' teaching is liberation theology. I think Jesus is the original liberation theologian. Because the framework in which he's talking about liberation is not based on false construct of identity. It's based on a higher value, which is love. All right? Let me read this sheet. Based on our last chapter, love as resistance, staying human in an inhuman world, all right? There comes a moment in every struggle when the real battle is no longer only against what stands outside of us. Okay, pause. I alluded to this earlier. It's not just about what externally we are working against, the factors that are seeking to destroy or corrupt, but against what is trying to take shape within us. Highlight that line, underline that line, whatever you need to do. Because what we don't realize is what this system generates in us with rage. There was a moment, I feel like years ago, maybe, Christine, there was an article you sent me, I don't know, about all the young people connected to the movement who was having heart attacks and heart disease. I think there was an article, I don't know, I can't remember. But the point was, all this anger destroys you. I sat here and funeralized a young woman in her third, Eric Garner's daughter, who's out there fighting for justice and mad and angry, a heart attack. It destroys you, right? So it's not about what is happening outside of us. It is what all that is doing to us internally, right? Systems can exhaust us, injustice can wound us, and repeated disappointment can slowly harden the heart until survival feels more natural than hope. That's what I mean by the alternative vision, that you think survival is what we're supposed to be. Survival is what we're supposed to live. Well, we survive. No. What good is it to survive and then be nihilistic? To survive and still be hopeless. That means the death you face is the death of the soul, right? It is at this precise moment that the teachings of Jesus becomes most radical. Come on. Jesus does not call people to love because the world is gentle. He calls people to love because the world can be brutal. Love in this sense is not sentimental softness. Hear me. It is disciplined strength. It is the refusal to allow cruelty to determine the character of our souls. I'm telling you, this is. I try to drive this point home because if I look up to Michael and I say, "Hey, I curse you out and tell you that you ain't," and then you do the same thing in response, what just happened to you? What happened to you? Yeah, brother. Where did Mike? Where Randy go? Oh, yeah. That's the bigger issue. What has happened to you? If what I've done has now shifted your disposition.
So,
It's speaking. You got to get up on. Got to speak.
so one of the things.
Oh
that
yeah. Somebody say before I talk. When I get on this mic, stop trying to be cool and sexy. Not you. I'm just saying. Be like, yeah, Pastor Mike. So.
So
Go
there's
ahead.
this theory that oftentimes oppress people. Instead of fighting for liberation, they oftentimes can become oppressors.
Of course.
And what I've started to notice, especially under this current political climate that we're in, I've seen people who look like me using arguments that were once used against us,
Absolutely.
against other folks.
Absolutely.
And so I was having dinner with a Palestinian friend last night, and he was telling me how much racism he's been receiving from Black Americans, blaming them for Kamala losing the election. And it was hard for me to hear that because I oftentimes know, like, even with Jesse Jackson, like, was one of the first Black politicians to ever talk about Palestinians.
Yeah.
Right? And how.
He was also made fun of for critiquing Jews.
Right.
And that famous line, Jaime Town. See, you was young. You weren't even born, I don't think.
No.
I remember they didn't let Jesse loose on that one.
And so I think in our fight against this injustice, it's very easy to look at Trump and not realize that we are actually becoming Caesar ourselves as we start to fight that.
If you got all these notes, I said that last week. That is part, and the week before. That's what you have to fight against. You cannot become, in fighting against the woundedness, you cannot become the one who inflicted the wounds. You can't become that. And that's what happens all the time. And if you remember my statement when I talked about who saw Gladiator 2, remember with Denzel, remember that line I said from the movie? When Denzel said, what is the dream of the slave? And most people saying, oh, to be free. No, Denzel said the dream of the slave is to own a slave. All right? In other words, the oppressed ultimately, if not guarding their soul, becomes oppressors in some way. Go to the civil rights movement. See, this is what we don't talk about. Civil rights movement was dominated by what? Not who, what? Not who, what? Men. Black preachers in the 40s, 50s. Men. Weren't no female pastors really in the 40s and 50s and 60s. Men. So you had a lot of men who was at the fort. We didn't pay attention. A lot of women who were part of the movement. Rosa Parks is viewed as a catalyst, rarely viewed as a leader. Now, you could call the list of black women who are at the forefront of civil rights movement. Fannie Lou Hamer, Shirley. You call the roll of them. The problem is that those black men were in churches oppressing black women. You can't lead, you can't preach, you can't serve. So while you fighting for freedom, you're oppressing women at the same time. And you don't see that blind spot? You don't see that blind spot? So that means that your fight for liberation is always not just flawed, it's short-sighted. Right? I gave the example of the preacher who up there talking about, went viral for talking about, you're not going to talk to our sisters like this. When they talking about Kamala, and we stand with our black women. We stand with Kamala Harris, but you don't believe in black women preachers. Same person. Glaring inconsistency. We so foolish, we caught up passing the video around. 2 million views, 3 million, but you don't even realize the same one you idolize and glorifying don't believe that God calls women to preach. That's the blind spot. That's what you're saying. The greatest tragedy is not for the oppressed to remain oppressed. The greatest tragedy is when the oppressed become oppressors. Not because what you realize, and history teaches, that the oppressed, unfortunately, are quicker to become oppressors than being liberated. That's what we don't want to talk about. We don't want to be honest about that. All right, let me read this and then we'll get to you, Lim. Howard Thurman understood that hatred is often born, watch this, from legitimate pain. When people are denied dignity, silenced, overlooked, and mistreated, anger rises naturally. But hatred, while understandable, becomes dangerous when it begins to shape identity. Hatred convinces us that the only way to survive injustice is to mirror its spirit. Please underline that. Hatred teaches us that the only way to survive injustice is to mirror its spirit. to become as cold as the systems we oppose, as dismissive as those who dismiss us, as hardened as the forces that wounded us. And when that happens, oppression achieves, I would say, its quietest and greatest victory. It not only controls circumstances, it begins to control the inner life. When oppression, when you start having dreams of being the oppressor, and you may not have outright dreams, but when you want the control that you learned from the oppressor, it's that, look, man, the Bible got it. Now, I'm not one of the people who everything, the Bible's a blueprint. You never hear me say, I can't stand that. I'm like a blueprint for what we building. People, okay, good. What part of the blueprint you want? It ain't no blueprint. But there are lessons to be learned in this thing. Primarily this. Somebody Google, since nobody like to Google anymore. We like to use the phone for everything. Look up, I want you to say, just look up real quick, and I'm not going to do it. Somebody just look up and see who quick with the hands were. How long, according to the Bible, how long was Israel enslaved in Egypt? Come on, let me see these Google hands. Come on, sister, 430 years. 430 years. I hope you wasn't asking about no casino. I know it was. 430 years. I want you to hear this. I'm going to ask another question. Now, you got to be careful this one. Let me see the real my black revolutionaries. How long did slavery last in this country? Don't guess. Say it again. 246. There we go. What you said? You told everybody. It's so funny. I was on the platform on the stage at Morehouse for the inauguration, and two chairs over me was this guy who during it clearly was on his phone, and all of a sudden the phone started speaking, and it was like, you have to check out Cardi B's new single, our new hit, whatever. It was so loud, and we were on the stage dead. He was like, brother, what you doing? We up here trying to install you got Cardi B playing on the video on the low. All right. Who got the right number? How many? 200 what? 246. 430, 246. Okay. So let's do the 400, and you'll get the 246. 430, 246. 100 years, 50 years is enough to what? For what? No, not what you hit. No. You trying to do math. I am. Wait a minute. Don't do math on me yet. No, wait. When I say the difference is 50 years of enslavement is a generation, but I ain't going there. Let me ask you a question for my folk. How long does it take to create a habit? 40 days. 21 days. Wait a minute. 21 days it takes of doing something to become a habit. 21 days to become a habit. 430 years. If all you know is oppression, in 430 years, some habits connected to oppression becomes identity, becomes nature. 430. Now, if that entire time of subjugation is shaped by oppressive structures, you are no longer a person who's oppressed. You are an oppressed person. But you hear the difference. You're not a person who's oppressed. You become an oppressed person. Right? Your way of thinking is shaped by oppression. How you see the world is shaped by oppression. Your very actions are shaped by oppression. The way you see yourself is shaped by oppression. Period. You know nothing outside of oppression. You know no world outside of oppression. If 21 days change the habit, what does 430 years of enslavement do to a people? So I ain't hitting, I'm just using biblical stuff. I ain't go to us yet, 246. So that if everybody right here, this is Heather, Jan, and Valerie, right? And they now have been in bondage for 400, well, they ain't going to be themselves, but let's just keep it at 50 years. 50 years they've been oppressed. 60 years they've been oppressed. Right? And all they know, 21 days to change a habit, remember? 60 years. All they know is oppression. They were born into oppression, lived in oppression, gained their identity from oppression. And then after all them years of oppression, let's just hit 60. Here I come showing up. Y'all's is free. Right. You free. I broke the bonds of oppression. I've destroyed the oppressor. You are free. There you go. Free to do what? Because I have now unleashed you into a world under the guise of freedom. But the work that was done in you has not been loose yet. So all you know is the oppression you've been in, which means then your habits and your practices will be a reflection of the oppression you know, even though you've been freed. You've been freed physically, but you're still in bondage mentally. You would think 430 years of oppression, you'd be like, Lord, thank you for liberating me. Watch this. Who's the liberator of Israel? Don't say God. Don't say God. Who's the liberator? Moses. Moses liberator. The reluctant one. He's liberated, right? You remember the whole let my people go? Just in case you didn't know, I'm going to say this to you. Okay, you ready for this? Moses did not look like Charlton Heston. Okay. Some of my young folk don't know that, but some of the older folk know that was a big movie back in the days, Moses. And Charlton Heston was Moses. Right? Moses. It still showed the 10 Commandments. Every Easter, right? Yeah, see? 10 Commandments. Charlton Heston. Let my people. Right? And so the liberator brings them out of Egypt. And then what you notice, from the moment they get out and get to the Red Sea, from that Red Sea on, boy, they ain't got nothing to do but complain. Because their spirits, after foreign had become adjusted to oppression. So as diabolical and destructive as it was what they knew. Nothing about the narrative in the scripture of their liberation journey made any sense if you think about it. It doesn't make sense if you don't understand the chains of oppression. Because you would think, man, you free. They complain from the minute they get out of Egypt. The whole journey they complained against God. Right? You don't get the hint that they was complaining against Pharaoh. But they complained against God. And so the liberated Moses gets them out. They free and clear. They went through all the Red Sea, all that stuff. And they get to the place where Moses met God, Mount Sinai. And Moses makes a decision. Listen, God says, come on, we need to talk. So Moses leaves and says, I need to go talk to God. And Joshua comes with him. And Moses up there talking to God. And Moses is like, man, God, these people are, they thank you for liberating them and all this stuff. And Moses up there talking, pleading the people's case. And then God is like, what's all that partying I hear going on? This is I'm using my language. This is in the scripture. God's like, what's all that party? He said, all these people you trying to defend, Moses, look at them. They down partying. They left, and the Egyptians gave, watch this, the Egyptians gave them gold, their earrings, their ring, get out of here, and gave them all the stuff that could have activated a fiscal liberation. Boy, y'all missing it. Gave them a financial, what do you call it, Jay? Stimulus. The people held them gave them money. Here, leave. Take our stuff, go. They down there partying, and they took what could have been used in some way to participate in the fiscal liberation. They took all that gold and commissioned Aaron, the liberator's brother, to make a golden calf, who was one of the gods in Egypt, by the way. Right? They built a familiar God because they didn't know the unfamiliar one who had liberated them. They were free, but they couldn't break free here. So in freedom, they recreated a God who symbolized their oppression and were partying with their stimulus check. It ain't funny, because with your stimulus check, you went and got the God called Gucci, and the God called Louis, and the God called Chanel and Dior. Then they realized you was buying the gods of your oppressor. See, it's easy to talk about that calf, but not your bag. It's easy to talk about that calf and not your shoes. See? Because that's all you know. Because the oppressor said, this is what makes you valuable. And you gobble it up. You gobble it up. Because not because it's fashionable per se, but because it symbolizes that somehow you've achieved Pharaoh status. You down with the king. All right? This is deep, man. You can't to break free here. And this is the work of Jesus. He understood it. I got to liberate them here. I got to help them stop living under Rome's gaze. Stop living your life under the gaze of Rome. See, blackness and whiteness are constructs, but whiteness means something different in this oppressive structure. It is not white people, it is whiteness. Because whiteness does not represent color in this country. Whiteness represents system. So white supremacy is a system, right? It's a system. So it's not about people, it's the system that it represents. White supremacy is a system based on a falsehood, which is race, right? And we don't realize how it maneuvers through us, how we accept it, how it has landed in our spirit. But it's still living under that gaze of whiteness, still trying to prove your validity as a human being. I will never engage in that kind of work, Mary, to prove my value to a jaundiced eye. You what? How you look, to prove my worth in your eyes? And your view is tainted and filtered through hate? I feel the need to prove my worth to you? No. Because if I prove my worth to you or feel the need to, that means I'm also seeking validation from you. And that means I'm handing over the keys to my identity to you, and my strength, and my power, and my uniqueness, and my gifts, and all the things that make me who I am. The minute I start trying to make you believe I have value, no, I don't care if you don't see me. Because what good is it to be seen but not see yourself? This is the fight of this cultural moment. The greatest fight you can imagine. This current fight is for your identity and for your value and for your worth, but for you to see it. Because everything you're bombarded with every day tells you that you are not enough. Every day, everything. Every marketing campaign for some product is only making money because it's telling you you ain't enough. Let me tell you, I think all the way the mechanisms are deep, right? But let me tell you about TikTok Shop. Let me tell you about TikTok Shop. No, this is not going, I'm not coming where you think, because I could critique it, But I actually want to tell you how TikTok Shop is undermining the market. It's undermining capitalism. Capitalism is based on creating or generating a sense of value through product, right? And this is how luxury high-end products survive, because we've connected worth to it and value to it. Now, when you really have done that work, you don't need a commercial. I don't know the last time I seen a Gucci commercial. What do I need a commercial for that stuff for? Y'all doing all the advertising. And I don't have to create a commercial when I've already created value and worth connected to the thing, the product. Right? Watch. People go in debt behind high-end luxury products. Debt. Save up. Blow a check for something to match your outfit for one night. Men and women. Don't think I'm just talking to women. Because people think that when you talk about this, no, this is because economic insanity is the respect of no persons. Right? Now watch this. But TikTok Shop getting paid and is the anti-luxury item generator. Because watch this. Convenience can rewire your purchasing habits. Convenience. Because I don't know, I'm not saying it's not possible. I don't know nobody who just went online and like a Louis Vuitton bag that was real. But TikTok Shop come like this. You can get these 3 pants for $64.99. And they make money. Do you understand how TikTok undermines the luxury market? I can't stand it, but it's brilliant. It's brilliant because all of a sudden, that's why they got influencers, models, and stuff. Now listen, you can get this whole suit, and it's on sale, $28.99 for this whole top and bottom combination. And you be sitting up there, oh, that look good. And then watch this. You be like, in a moment where everything expensive, all of a sudden, oh, $28.99. And then here what you do. Y'all ready for it? Here it come. This is what I know. And you say, no. Oh yeah. Then they got 3 of them: the gray, the khaki, and the blue. For $34.99. Watch it. Watch it. Watch now. Watch though. Watch. And then it's like you're sitting there like, wait a minute. And now, watch this. You got the three outfits, right? And then they hit you with this one. You know, if you still buy this within the next hour, you can get this one at a discount price. So now you got 6. Now you spend $64.99. You got 6 outfits. And the beauty of it is the convenience and the algorithm in that moment has done something that other industries could not do. You know what it is? Make you forget that ain't no name on them 6 piece of items. And so now, convenience and a lack of money got you making different choices. Because now the outfits look good. Now watch this. If you had seen the outfits just on a picture, you'd be like, that's suspect. But that's why they got somebody, an influencer, modeling it. And now you're like, wait a minute. He like about my size. I think that might look good on me. And then pretty soon, you done went shopping on TikTok. You spent $100 and you got 7 pair of pants, 10 shirts, and a knee brace that you didn't know you needed. But you saw that knee brace for $6.99. I was like, my knee do be hurt sometimes. And you did all this for $100. Right? And then you went out, and then somebody was like, man, where you got that top from? Right. Shein, right. And next thing you know, all these low, not high end, all these now Because all they doing is they realize something. They understood something. If you could get past the idea and the intoxication with the brand name and realize that these same products are some of the same products, but with no name, now they got you understanding something. You ain't got to spend the $3,000 when you can spend $39.99. It's killing the luxury brand market. I love it. I love it. Not because I'm up there shopping, but I love what it's doing because people live, because TikTok got you already. They already got you. And if they was showing you in the middle of your watching your videos, if they were showing you, if Louis Vuitton, we were showing, come get this bag. The new Louis is out for $3,500 or $4,000. You be like, But now we got this bag and this look good. And then the person they talking you through your purchase. And now you're making because it was a time you wouldn't have said that back in the days. You had a pleather jacket, a pleather bomber. You know it wasn't leather back in the 80s, but you was trying to lie about it. You was up there cutting out the label that said made in China. Oh, see, I'm talking about older folk now. Right? You was doing all that stuff because you didn't want to, but now it don't matter. Now you're a smart consumer. Because you see that, I love it. But no, instead of getting the $3,000 back, in between your scrolling and all stuff, they come up there and hit you with fashionista stuff. How many of y'all shop at fashionista? Come on, put your hands up. Don't lie. Fashion Nova, I'm saying. You're being a fashionista, shopping at Fashion Nova. There we go. Right? Shein, what else? Keep going. Temu, yeah, got it all. It's like everybody always be asking me, Pastor, your glasses. What? No, these are 5'2". Yeah, exactly. I just put you on. These frames, which I love, they're nice, right? Let me show, because some people don't believe something. Hold this. How much you? Hold this. Feel the weight. Feel the weight. See that? Yeah. $7. Yeah. No, $7 for the frame, and then I'm giving him business night. Then I get Harold to do my lenses. And people are like, man, where you getting the franchise? I be like, Who trying to spend all that money? I was there before. But my point is, something is happening. That's why I love these other Shein and all the team, all that stuff. See there, yeah. All that stuff, because now it's killing the luxury brand market. And we feel good because now instead of saying, I bought it, now you love the fact you got a deal. So now you're romanticizing the deal. Right? And you don't even mind that when you wash it shrink a little bit. Because you ain't paid but $7 a piece. Your expectation can't be but so high. They've already tampered down your expectation because the 3-pack of shirts was $28.99. Now, when you break that down a piece, you ain't spend but so much. So now here you go. You like, let me wash this and hang this in the bathroom because I ain't about to put this in no dryer for it to shrink. I'm telling all y'all secrets. That's what I'm doing. Because what you realize is that it ain't the name. It's always been you, the wearer. So you can make the stuff that don't cost a lot look good because it's you. If you understood that in life, it's always been you. Always been you. I had people, let me tell you, I'm telling you. So I usually preach in these like Nehru shirts, right? I had people hit me up, Pastor, where you get these shirts from? You preach them all the time. And I was like, Amazon, $19.99 a piece. Because once I bought one and saw it fit well and lasted long, I got all the colors. People thought I had some stuff made. Made? $19.99. And they said, dry clean them, they look good. You see, we hypnotize them. Where you get this thing? Where you get them from? Amazon. Why? Because we enamored by foolishness. You know what I mean? Huh? I make a good salesperson, you said? Oh, yeah. No, I change the whole habit. You stick around me long enough. The point is, it's always been you. And I'm going to go back to what I said again, that the problem is that when you begin to mimic the habits and patterns of those who dominate you, you're no longer dominated. You become a carbon copy of the one who's dominated. All right? Now, here it is, and then we out because it's late. I know it's going to be late tonight. This is our last night of Thurman. Oh, I'm sorry, Lynn. Here you go. Please speak up because if I got to say it,
I'm doing the best I can.
There we go.
There are 2 books that address some of the things that you were talking about. One is called The New Jim Crow. Which
You love that book, apparently.
I love that book.
And we're going to get you some new books. Go ahead.
It's a book, but it's now a movie. It's called Cast.
Yeah. You love that too, apparently. You mean you took that mic to say that? No, I'm messing with you. All right. Jesus offers, and circle this, whatever. Jesus offers another way. Jesus offers another way. If you recognize that what you are in is oppressive and problematic, what will you do? Talk about it or get out of it? Jesus offers another way. He calls people to resist injustice fiercely while guarding the tenderness of their humanity. He calls people to fight systems without surrendering compassion. He calls people to remain whole in a world that constantly pressures them to become fractured. This kind of love is not passive. It is absolutely courageous. It refuses to pretend that injustice is acceptable. Yet it also refuses to allow injustice to poison the well of the spirit. You can't fight against injustice so much until injustice now takes you over and you lose yourself. What is the other way that you're seeking? Because I can critique injustice, but I also, if I don't have another way, the injustice will consume me. And pretty much I become the thing I can't stand because I never had another way. So Jesus didn't sit there talking about Caesar ain't nothing. Caesar ain't nothing. It was, yeah, we clear. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, but unto God what is God's. And let me show you what is God's way. That's the alternative vision. Love, as Jesus teaches, is a form of freedom. It is the decision that no matter how harsh the world becomes, the heart will not be surrendered to bitterness. It is the determination that our struggle for justice will be guided not only by anger at what is wrong, but by a vision of what is possible. Love keeps imagination alive. Love keeps dignity intact. Love keeps us from forgetting who we are. Essentially, Thurman invites us to ask a searching question. What would it mean to resist everything that diminishes life while choosing to remain fully human? What does it look like to resist everything that diminishes life and keep your humanity intact? Because you can protest it without being consumed by it. If all you doing is recycling videos that make you mad, what's the ones that give you life? You constantly sending stuff that makes you mad. What are you sending that puts smiles in your heart, enjoying your spirit? What's the alternative vision? You can't be so consumed with it makes you bitter that you don't know what brings you joy anymore. And you sit around here mad. I'm mad because of the current political state. No, the current political state will never. See, one of the most revolutionary sermons I preached recently was in that pulpit about don't forget your joy. See, people think that when you hear these sermons about feeling good, it is a form of resistance. In the midst of injustice and oppression and hate and bitterness, do not lose your joy. Because once you do that, you are lost for sure. In the midst of all the reasons, if life, I wrote in my book, if life gives you 100 reasons to mourn, God will give you 1,000 reasons to rejoice. You can't forget that. You'll lose it. You'll lose yourself. If all you do every day, you don't even realize how it poisons you. You looking at stuff that's always negative, that you read in negative about something said about black folk, and you don't see how you became negative. You don't see the toll it takes. That means it has won. You don't realize you fighting it, but it got you. You don't see it. Say it again. Thurman invites us to ask a searching question. What would it mean to resist everything that diminishes life while still choosing to remain fully human? Not naive, not silent, not passive, but human, capable of courage, truth, compassion, and moral clarity, even in the midst of conflict. Because the deepest victory is not only, let me pause for a second. The deepest victory is not only the transformation of systems, as necessary as that is. The deepest victory is that the struggle does not steal our souls. The deepest victory is that after all the battles we fight, we still recognize ourselves as people shaped by dignity, animated by hope, and grounded in a love that refuses to let darkness have the final word. When you go back and you quote all the names of those civil rights giants and those revolutionary giants, always remember they did not let the thing they fought against destroy them. You cannot let it make you a different person. Right? Your fight is for your soul. That's the real fight. Because if you hurt me, and I turn around and hurt you, my soul has been lost. And here's the thing. You keep regurgitating the narrative of how you've been hurt, or how the system hurting you, or how the structure destroying you, that you don't realize how subtly and softly and easy you become the thing you hate. It happens and you don't realize it. You get up every morning mad, looking at stuff to scroll, looking at the things that reinforce the echo chamber that you've been in, trying to figure out. You don't realize that when you get up in the morning, the first thing you see is the stuff you've been always watching. Why is it doing that? Not because that's the information everybody looking at. That's the information you looking at, and the algorithm is now playing into your pain. And then you there all day long. I can't believe this. This is sickening. I can't stand it. This is so racist. And you just going through it. And it's feeding you. And it's feeding you all the things you want to see. And you don't realize what is happening to you. You wasn't the person before who was so snappy. Now you get snappy because you've been reading snappiness all day. You don't get it. And you for every 10 videos, you looked at one good video, but the number's still imbalanced. This was happening all the time. And we don't realize how it is sapping us. Because again, you don't realize that you become the thing that has damaged you, but you also don't realize how you participate in the thing that minimizes you. I said it before. In this culture, it would make you believe that you are not enough. That's what this cultural moment is telling you. You are not enough. You need this, you need this, you need that, you need that. You got to have this to be valuable. And we believe it. And we go on these infinite quests to try to prove. So I got to have this, and I got to get this, and I need to be this, and I need to be around these people. I need to have these connections. I need to network here. Don't, let me just say that now I'm going to do some old shameless plugs. Don't be in this place for years and this place don't get in you. Stop coming to church. I don't mean stop showing up. Stop coming to church and come to be developed. Come to grow. Come to be expanded. Because I ain't interested in you coming to church. I have no interest in you showing up. None. So you can hear too many people say that. I don't care if you come in here just to be here. That does nothing. They ain't who's a teacher in here? Anybody that's a teacher? Teacher. Not a teacher is going to be happy if you show up in the classroom every day. You showing up every day. You in the class every day. But she failing everybody because you ain't learning nothing. So showing up ain't nothing. You know you can have perfect attendance and still fail a class? So perfect attendance don't mean much. This is why when I follow Jesus and I look at, this is why there's those moments where there's a crowd and everybody around, and then at the same time, here go Jesus dipping away. He's stepping off, getting away by himself, or pulling his disciples. Hey, let me teach y'all something. This ain't about a social event. This is about how we are committed to experiencing our growth, our transformation, our elevation, our expansion. That's what this is about. I got folks like, well, I'm going to go to that church because, you know, you could really get some good networking. What? I ain't making that up, by the way. And I ain't talking about this church either. I'm saying people in general say things like that. They make choices. Well, I think you need, because that's the place you need to be to get connections. What? Connections to what? Clearly it ain't you or God. That's not impressive. That's why I keep saying it, and I am never afraid to say it. I am not impressed when there's 2,000 people in this building and 8 people serving kids in the morning. Because there's a disjointedness right at that point. And you begging folk. I'm not impressed with people who get tired. I told all these folk, these new leaders we got, listen, I'm not impressed with none of that. That title is given, that opportunity is given, it can be snatched right back. This is about service and growth. If you've been in here years and you still dealing with the same little things, and you the same person with the same issues, and you treating people the same way, man, go somewhere else. Because I ain't interested if you ain't committed to your own growth. If you're not committed to if you still are dealing with all these, but you haven't committed to your expansion, your elevation, your growth, because you can't want to just be the same, especially when you know there's room for improvement. You got to want that improvement. You got to want the thing that makes you a better version of yourself every single day. It's that idea that the only person I'm competing with today is who I was yesterday. I ain't competing against nobody else. Right? I never want to get to the point in my journey where I got to keep making excuses for myself. Excuses for myself to people. You know, God ain't through with me yet. What? Well, God's still working on me. Really? Why would God need to keep working on you if God showed you the way, but you chose not to follow it? Instead of saying God working on you, how about saying the truth? I have not made a better choice yet. These are harsh realities, man. Because I'm at a point in this journey, I've been doing this for 30 years. 30 years. I've seen some amazing things. I've seen some beautiful things. And you know what I want to see now? I want to see more beautiful things and more amazing things. I want to see the light bulb come on for more people. I want to see people actually start to commit to growing even more. That's what gives joy. Not the fact that you sit there and, well, we got a big church and all this and this. No. I don't care about that. I want to see our commitment continue to grow. And it's grown, and it's amazing. To the community, I want to see all that expand. I have little tolerance for selfishness. Not when I follow the carpenter. If it's always about you and your issue and your problem, I ain't got time for that. We got too much work to do. There's one word that I've said for 22 years now, and it's the greatest word I think God laid on my heart. What's the word? Depersonalize. 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 Well, how about going back to the theme that's connected to that? It's bigger than you. Get out of the way. Stop making everything about your person. You've been slighted. So? You slighted. So-and-so didn't talk. Or so-and-so. Yeah, you slighted because so-and-so ain't talked to you, but your slight ain't that you went to bed hungry last night. You're slighting that you don't have nowhere to go tonight when you leave here. There's a whole lot of folk who got that issue. But you mad because so-and-so, they didn't recognize. I ain't saying this kid, I'm saying what people do in church. Well, so-and-so, they was up there and they didn't recognize me. What? That's not even a first world problem. That's a problem steeped in delusion. I wish I would complain about some stuff, you know. I tell you, them good days outweigh the bad ones. But there's some things that ain't worth the aggravation. You slight me, and now I'm sitting around holding a grudge. Boy, you ain't got that much power over me. Or you said something to me that you said to hurt me, and then you get mad because I ain't hurt. Okay. All right. My skin is thick. But watch this. Yours is too. And it ain't thick because I said so. It's thick because it's gone through. Man. What would happen if you actually grew from the things you survived? What if you could look back on what you survived and actually start growing from that? I mean, if you think about all the things you survived in your life, and if you were able to fixate on all the things you survived and just said, you know, I'm growing from this stuff. When you survive having a family that didn't support you, but you now going to be petty, now you survived too much. You survived people giving up on you, and now you consumed with talking about people, nah, you survived too much. You survived when people walked away from you, but now you're mad at folk that don't want to talk to you? No, you survived too much for that. You mad? Hold on. God, you mad because people won't let you have your way, but God has already made ways? You survived too much for that. What's the point of being here if growth ain't taking place in your spirit? And don't be like, well, I'm not the same. I'm not like I was back. Yeah, well, yeah, you are. Because some of us didn't grow. We just learned how to hide our lack of growth. We did a better job at hiding the fact that we ain't grow. In other words, we learned to pretend it and fake it and perform it really well. I'm telling you, this is a harsh one tonight because listen, I'm over it. I'm at that point now. I'm like, you know what? I never understood. You sometimes see some older folk when I was younger, you hear, I'm over it. But now I'm there. And it's like, you know, I'm over this. I'm over petty people. I'm over small-minded people. I'm over people who don't know how to depersonalize. I'm over people who can't see past themselves. I'm over people who rather be selfish than generous. I'm over people who rather stay mad than be joyful. I'm over all that stuff. I'm just over it. And then if I don't pay attention to you, God bless you. Because I'm over it. And this is not me venting. This is me trying to hit some people in reality because there's too many people who come in church and act as though it's a right and not a privilege. And then if you lead in church, that's not a right, it's a privilege. If God allows you to get up and come to church, that's a privilege. If you got here tonight, that's a privilege. Man, and when you enter the place, man, act like it's privileged space. Not because of the building, but because of this building. You. It's a joy. It's a joy. You know what I mean? It's a joy. And it shouldn't take somebody close to you dying to see that. It shouldn't shake hearing of somebody sick to see that. Because, you know, we love that. You be reckless and angry and bitter, and all of a sudden somebody goes, oh, Lord, I gotta get my life together. And that lasts for 48 hours. Then it's back to business as usual. No. Thurman would say, let love, I close with this, let love have its way with you. Why not? You let other things have their way with you. Let love have its way with you. Let love run reckless over your spirit. Let love find a landing place in your heart. Let love guide your action, your footsteps, and your decisions. Let love be the grounding of your being. When you do that, you will experience something that has taken you a long time to even think about. And this is when you hear, God, give me a peace that surpasses all understanding. I want peace that's not understandable. I want the peace that is not quantifiable. Because I ain't going to spend my time being mad all day. All the things. Paul talked about, think on these things. Everything that is beautiful and everything that is loving and everything that is joy and everything that, think on these things. These things that make your life qualitatively better. Think on those things. And when you think on those things, steeped in love, shaped by love, you ain't got time to walk around here angry or disgruntled. I had this conversation the other day with Minister Kay, and I said this to her. I've endured many things in my life. Some harsh things, some hard things, some things that should have destroyed me, killed me. And and I was like, you think about all the things you survived and the things you've experienced. And there's no choice but to be grateful for the life you have. Like, I'm at this point in the journey now where I'm like, pleasing God is more important than anything else. And I'm like single-minded in that. For me to get to a point now and ever doubt God's presence in my life, or to be mad, God, you need to come through on this one, Lord. Now, God, you know what I'm dealing with right now. You need to come through. I be feeling God like, wait a minute. How dare you even raise that? When didn't I come through? When didn't I show up? God, I need you to make a way. Why you got to say that? When didn't I make ways? God, I hope you can bring me out of this one. When didn't I deliver you? When didn't I do those things? That's why you're still here. It doesn't mean that one day you won't leave. Because you're leaving. You're leaving. But my God, let me tell you what my greatest desire is. When I leave here, I'm leaving here with a big juicy smile on my face. It's that old Negro spiritual. And this is the one, but I heard this for the first time at Morehouse College. Said, I done what you told me to do. This is what I said, one of the things I said yesterday. I know right now, it's not arrogance, it's because of the relationship I have with God. I know right now, if I left today, I know God's going to say, well done. I ain't got to question that. I ain't got to work for it. I know God will say, well done. And that gives me a joy and also a peace. I ain't got to grind myself to prove nothing to nobody. I know God is going to say, well done. If God gave you a handful to work the handful. If God gave you an armful, work the armful. But no matter whether it's the armful, the handful, if you work it and are faithful to it, well done. Because here's what I love. God, in that parable Jesus told, the owner did not say, you've been faithful over everything. He said, you've been faithful over a few things. And because you knew how to be faithful over a few things, now I'll make you ruler over many things. And then here's the part that shouts. The rule over many things, don't make me shout, is this line: enter into my joy. That's the goal. Listen, thank God for Howard Thurman and Jesus and the Disinherited. An amazing book. And no TNT. You're getting a break from TNT for 2 Tuesdays. Now remember, we're going to put the announcement on. We showing up in here. You got 2 Tuesdays. You got a break. And I know, also, let me also say that next February, we'll be going to Ghana. All right? So I'm going to tell you right now, it's close to the same price, like almost $6,000, all inclusive. If you were on the trip last night, you should have heard Brad say it's all meals included in this trip to Egypt, tips already included. You ain't got to tip nobody. Everything is included in that price. Every room, the meals, the flight, the buses, the boat, everything is in that one price. You pay. And I'm going to tell you right now, try to go on somewhere by yourself and piecemeal that trip together and see how much you would have been paying. Easy. See, I know you did it. I know you checked it out. So paying $58.95 for a trip that if you did it by yourself would cost $12,000, man, please. That's a no-brainer. So what I'm telling you now, we going to Ghana. So if you want to go to Ghana, when we put this thing, the link live, same thing, $500 deposit. I am telling you right now, it is going to be worth the trip. I showed the people last night the itinerary for the Ghana trip. It's an 11-day trip next year. Put the money to the side. And if you say you can do it, you actually can do it. Start, because you know what I realize? I will always, and we could stand, but remember this, and there's a lot I said tonight, because I was getting some stuff out tonight. I ain't mad. Pastor was on me. Somebody was pissed off. I know how to do. No. But I'm going to tell you this. I tell my kids this. I tell them this all the time. I tell people this all the time. I do not mind paying for experiences. I will not pay for things. You watch? When's the last vacation you've been on? Last trip you took? Last summer, Cabos? How many days you went? I'm being nosy. Okay, good. 4 days is fine, right? You was Cabos 4 days, right? Watch this. You remember the trip? You had a good time? It's pretty good? Okay, in Cabos, right there. On the afternoon of the second day, what did you wear? Can't remember it. But you remember the experience. Things. You can't remember the things, but you'll always remember the experience. You invest in experiences, not things. Not things. So, you don't know, but you know the experience you had. So listen, all right, let's go, y'all. And it's too late. Y'all got me here at 9:30. It's y'all fault. It's really, and watch this. It's Lynn's fault. Lynn, raise your hand so everybody know whose fault it is. Okay, it's Lynn's fault. Okay, let's pray. God, we thank you. We honor you tonight, oh God. Thank you, God, for these gatherings, this time. Thank you, God, for pouring into us and for your spirit, oh God. Lord, the truth is, oh Lord, some people want to show up. Other people want to be discipled. God, thank you for being willing to disciple us on this journey. God, the truth is, to be a disciple is not easy. It requires sacrifice. But my God, there's no price tag on joy. There's no price tag on peace. There's no price tag on happiness. So God, thank you for all that you richly pour into us. And here's the key, God. What you give to us, to really make your gift complete, we must give to other people. We've been blessed in order to be blessings. We love you, Lord, and we thank you, God. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Amen. Listen, go home. All right. Have a good night. Many blessings.